popular area. I'm going to go out in the rocks out there, jetting out to set up. Just there's so many people who come by, don't want to disturb their experience. So I've activated the summit. I probably can't even see that with I'm not too far from the shack earlier. It's pretty windy. I don't know if you can hear it on the camera. I'm going to talk a little bit about my radio. I think I'll hike back down at the bottom where it's not going to be anywhere near this part of the road. It's not quite as windy. It's still a little windy, but the parking area is down over here. It's hidden. That's the road that comes in. You can see the little snow down in there. Goes all the way out, clear out there. Great National Monument. All right, getting to the end. There's the parking area, little bathroom, and my silver pickup is behind all the information. All right, so I'm back in the shack. Once I got down, it was still pretty noisy and windy. People were arriving, so I decided just to do this part here in the shack afterwards. Hope that's all right. I just want to talk a little bit about the radio I use. I've been doing SOTA for 3 years now, and out of those 3 years I've used a YouKits HB-1B for all but maybe I'd say 3 months, and that was only because I sent this particular one in after I beat it up on some summits. Didn't have a very good case for it, which I have a better case for it now. And sent it in to get refurbished. It was still under warranty, so they fixed it all. It was really just, some loose buttons, and it was nasty and dirty, things like that, and they fixed it up for me, and it was free of charge because it was still under their warranty, even though I was pretty rough with it. So, and the time that I didn't use it, in those couple of months, I used a KX2, which I have as well. And one of the things about this radio I really like is that it's fairly cheap, and this is $300 new. I'll just turn it on here, and it has worked great for me. I really like it. People may wonder, well, why, if you have a KX2, aren't you using your KX2? And even though it's a great radio and does a lot more, it's also, I think I spent $1,200 on it with the key and the mic and the other things that come with it. And honestly, I get nervous about damaging a radio that's that expensive. And I have this one, and it works awesome, so I tend to use it much more. I'm not going to go through all the features and things like that. There's other videos that do that. This is not really a review of it. But I've talked about other gear I have and haven't really talked about the radio a lot. And it does, as it says on it, it does 4 bands. I really use it for 3 bands more than anything else, 20, 30, and 40. And that's mostly because I've cut my antenna to those frequencies and don't use a tuner. I've recently made a new antenna which will do 15, which this does as well. And we'll be using that when the sunspots get a little bit better. So right now, for example, I have it hooked up to the battery I use, which is just this little 2200 milliamp hour battery. This is used mostly for like RC planes and things like that. I don't know if you can see that. It's supposed to put out 11.1 volts, but with the YouKits, I get higher than that. I get up to 12. Now I just finished the activation, so it starts off at about 12.6, and after having been on about an hour, I spent 35 minutes on air on the first mountain, about 30 minutes on air on the second one, so about an hour. It's dropped some. With that, and with this particular battery, I get about 4 watts out. This radio is supposed to be able to put out 5 if you give it enough juice. The 1 watt I don't really worry about, and just kind of like the setup that I have. One thing I really liked about this radio is when I'm transmitting, down here it'll give you the power, and then it'll give you your SWR above that. And many times I've had an antenna issue without realizing it, but my SWR was showing as really high. I bring my antenna down and check, and for example, found that I had a broken antenna, that was probably about 2 years ago. Or I used a linked antenna now, and one of my links maybe wasn't connected well. Things like that. So just having that little meter has been very helpful. It's sensitive on receive, and I hear lots of faint stations and do pretty well with it. And so I'm going to show you a map of the contacts I've made. It's not all of them. The map I'm going to show you is probably about 2, maybe 2.5 years worth of SOTA contacts with this radio. I didn't count the ones that I made with the KX2. And like I said, I really enjoy it. It's a great little radio. It's one of the cheaper ones you can find. Like I said, it's still $300 new. One thing I will mention is I bought one of these at an earlier version years ago and didn't use it for a long time. Just had it in a bag, just as in case. And when I knew I was going to get into QOP at some point. This is well before I did SOTA. And once I got into SOTA, that's what I started using. The difference back then, this was about 2013 maybe 2014, is that version did not have any QSK. Now QSK, for those who aren't real familiar or new to CW, that's how fast you break in going from send to receive. And without that, there was a delay. I would stop sending, and then I wouldn't receive until, maybe it might be a half a second later. But that amount of time made me lose the first 1 or 2 letters of a call sign, which can be frustrating. So, and it is frustrating, especially if you're going anything, above 15 words per minute. You need to have a faster break-in than that. And then they rectified that in their 2015 version, which is their Mark III. That's what this is a Mark III. And as soon as they did that, I sold my other one and bought this one, so that I would have the full break-in. And after that, I have 0 complaints with this radio. It also has this came with an internal pack. I'm gonna take off the LiPo battery, turn it back on. The internal pack, as you can see, runs about the same wattage. It's a 12.4. But I kind of use that as my backup because it doesn't last quite as long as the LiPo does. So if I run too long on this and the voltage gets too low, I unplug it and just use the internal battery. This one is not like the KX2, which will take whichever voltage is higher and just run off of that. If you have something connected, that's what it'll take. And the only way to get the internal is to undo that, and then it'll use the internal battery. But I think that's it. Hope you enjoyed the little talk on the HB-1B. Great little radio. I know there's other great ones out there, but just choose what will be best for you. And as you can see, size-wise, it's similar to a little bit smaller than a KX2. The thickness, weighs about the same. And I think that's it. All right, thanks a lot.